Welcome, one and all. We are live. It is Monday. We are a few seconds early, but that's okay. My name's Corp Cosplay, and tonight on Monday Night Nerd, we are talking all about social media and cosplay, the marriage made in heaven for some, the marriage made in a lot worse places. Folks, if you are new to the show, my name is Corp Cosplay. I am a cosplayer in the Southern Ontario area. I have been cosplaying since 2009, 2010. Been going to cons for 15 years, and I also have a marketing background. So this episode specifically is going to have a lot of discussion about cosplaying and my marketing side, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about algorithms, a little bit of why certain things should matter, why certain things don't matter. The world has changed a lot in social media over the past 5 years, and if you're not up to it, you probably don't know what's changed, what you should be looking out for, and stuff like that. So we're going to go over that tonight. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media, and a whole lot more. Boomster Joe, I'm excited about this episode. Marcy is also in chat. This is going to be a good one, and thank you for you folks on TikTok for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it as well. If you guys have any questions or anything to talk about, hop over to YouTube, Corp Cosplay, and jump into the chat. We got a lot to talk about tonight. So we are going to do a little bit of news. We're going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then on my Instagram earlier today, I did post a story asking anybody if you had any specific questions. I've done this before, so I did have some from the previous, but I did have a few people reach out with some new questions. We're going to answer those at the end of the show because they are really specific, and that's not a bad thing. To start things off, though, I want to give a shout out to my good buddy Pixel Mesh Art. That is her username on Instagram. She made me this custom Biohazard 2, which is Resident Evil's name in Japan, custom shirt for because I'm such a big Resident Evil fan, and she specifically put the Nintendo 64 logo because when I played Resident Evil back in the day, I had it on the N64, so this was really cool. She was telling me she was making it. I got it over the weekend, and I also want to give her a shout out. If you do want to see some of her art, Pixel and Mesh, this is, I've posted this on my stories before, this is the mural that she made at her gym, a local gym, lightweight gym. She painted this. It is about 8 feet tall and about 100 feet wide. She drew this on a wall, she painted it, and this is just a little shout out to her. You can check her out, pixelandmesh.art on Instagram. Big shout out to her. So yeah, I'm really loving this shirt. It's such a good shirt. I don't want to wear it too much because I'm worried if I wash it too much, I am going to destroy it, but I do love it. And I also want to wear her shirt, but I don't want to wreck it. But yeah, really cool. Let's jump into the topic that I think everybody wants to talk about. We don't usually talk about sports here, but I do have to talk about it because if you are Canadian, you did not have a great weekend. The Blue Jays did not beat the LA Dodgers for the World Series. I am not a big sports person. Well, I shouldn't say sports person. I'm not a big ball fan. I'm more of a hockey guy. But I did grow up playing baseball. So I was a little bit interested in this because it'd be amazing to see the Canadian team win the World Series. I know over the past 48 hours since the game, there has been a ton of conspiracy theories and a ton of speculation, as there is with most times when a big team like this doesn't win, especially when it has something to do with a border situation of a Canadian team and a U.S. team. Do I think there is any controversy or anything? No, I don't. I watched Game 7 where there's some things that were very, very, very close, 100%. There was a saying that I heard many, many years ago when I used to watch UFC, and I kind of put it into every sport that I watch now, and that is you do not leave it up to the referees. And in the UFC, that is a big thing because in the UFC, if you do not knock the guy out, if you do not make him tap out, it goes to the judges, and the judges can see things and not see things, and they could swing a fight one way or the other. Same thing with baseball, same thing with football, same thing with hockey. If you are one of those people on the team that may have this conspiracy theory that the umpires or whatever were trying to screw the Jays, make it so they don't have that choice. Make it so I'm just going to hit every single ball into the outfield and just get home run after home run after home run. I'm not going to hit it into a spot or have things happen where it has to be up to the umpires. Sometimes umpires miss things. I've joked 100 times on TikTok, especially because for some reason I get inundated with those bad umpire calls when it comes to them missing balls and strikes. I always put in the comments, this is where AI and stuff would come in very, very handy. But it sucks to not win, but I think we can all say they put up a hell of a fight. It was a great game at the end. It was sad to see them lose in 11, but there's always next year. I am a Dallas Cowboys fan when it comes to NFL football, so I know that saying very well. But yeah, go Jays. Good job. We'll see you in 2026, 2027, and maybe we're 2026. Yeah, 2026. We'll see what happens next year. Video game news. So I joked last week that I would be out of commission because a new game came out. And I haven't been completely out of commission, but I have been spending a bunch of downtime. I have been playing Power Washer Simulator 2 a lot. Pretty much after the show last week, I went downstairs and I purchased it right then and there. I paid the full price because I think the developers totally deserve every dollar of my money because of how good of a job they did on the first game. And they did not raise the price that much for the second game. It's pretty much the exact same price as the first one was when it came out, and now it's a 4-year difference. So bravo to those guys at the development team. I've enjoyed it a lot. It is very relaxing. My wife still makes fun of me of like my job is marketing, so there's a lot of decision making, there's a lot of creativity, and this game is just a lay back, enjoy a podcast or something in my ear or some lo-fi music and just power wash everything. It is such a relaxing game. They have changed some things from the first game. They've added some things. They've tweaked some things. Most of it is good. I have had a little bit of frame rate issues here and there. Some of the new things they've included, like the floor, they have like a handheld floor washer with a disc that you can go over flat surfaces. I bought it in the game. I didn't like it. So there's little things like that I'm glad they're trying, but it's just not for me. Overall, I think I'm probably only 15-20% through the game. There seems to be a whole bunch of levels. There are levels that expand in this one. If you played the first one, you pretty much were given a location, like a building or a vehicle, and you power washed it level over. There are some parts in this game that are levels that keep expanding. If you've seen any of them on TikTok, the big one is the underground, I guess you'd call it, public washroom, where you literally just wash the sign and then the sign raises up and it's the building of the washroom. You clean the outside, and then after you finish cleaning that, the door opens and you clean the inside of the washroom. Like I said, it's very fun, very interesting to see how they've grown the game. There's literally a shooting game, like a shooting at a carnival type thing, and the things you shoot are things that you've washed in the first game. So it was it's pretty fun so far. I'll keep you guys up to date on what I think of the rest of the game every single week. Also, I finished Resident Evil 5 officially. I gotta admit, it is probably the worst of the Resident Evil games I've played so far from the main line. I talked last week, obviously, if you were here, we talked about annoying sidekicks, and the sidekick in Resident Evil 5 is on the top of that list because she is annoying as hell. The big thing that I don't know how it was, because this is a port of the first one. So the original was made in PS3. Now it's on PS4, and that's the copy I'm using. I don't know if there was something that wasn't brought over, or if this was just a thing that people have to deal with. There are a couple, I think 3 boss fights that there were issues on how to beat the boss. Like, it wasn't just shoot the big flashing light. It was I needed to basically be the assistant, and I needed the sidekick to do the thing. So there was definitely a couple bosses that I blew through almost all my ammunition, and then out of desperation, I did something, and then the sidekick jumped in and got the kill. And that's very frustrating for me, because I'm not saying I need to be walked through everything, but when it's a game that specifically ammo dependent and you have only a certain amount of things with you, it sucks to waste a lot of it just trying to figure out, oh, you weren't supposed to use all that. You were supposed to let your assistant take care of it. So that's the big gripe I have about the game. I do have Resident Evil 6 to go through, and over the weekend, they did announce the box set of Resident Evil 9 is coming out, the Steelbook, and there's a deluxe edition and a whole bunch more coming out in February for the 30th anniversary of the series and the release of Requiem. I will be picking up the box set for sure. Everything looks really cool. They also announced that Baby Metal will be doing a collab on merch with Lady Demisque from Village, so I'm really excited to check out what that is going to be. Other than that, that is kind of the news for the week. We talked about the shirt, we talked about the Jays, we talked about Power Washer, we talked about Resident Evil. When it comes to any other entertainment, there isn't a hell of a lot going on right now. The movies have been pretty slow. I don't think anything has really popped up in my streaming that I'm going to be watching. I know I have to watch Alien Earth. I've had about 10 people reach out asking my opinion of Alien Earth. I'm not even a huge Alien fan, but for some reason everyone thinks this is going to be the series that I'm going to love. I will watch it at some point. As you all are aware, I'm not a TV person, so that does impact how much I'm looking for TV shows to watch. But I will be watching Alien Earth at some point. I know our streaming service got a bunch of new movies, new old movies, so I'll have to see what those are. I think one of them is Species 2, and I haven't seen Species 2 in a while, and I really did like the Species series, so we'll see. But that is about it. If you guys are still here, I greatly appreciate it. If you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share it with your friends, and a whole bunch more. You got me to watch Aliens, so valid, says Crystal. Aliens is a great movie. Like, I've seen the Aliens franchise. I've seen all of the Aliens franchise except for Prometheus. Great series. It's just not like JS and Rob from the Geeks & Co. They are obviously giant Predator fans. I like Aliens. I love the Xenomorphs. I've got actually a Xenomorph toy in my other room. It's not the series that I'd be like, Xenomorphs, Aliens. I just think it's a cool series. Sponsor, and then we're going to get into the main event, the reason you are all here. Sponsor, as always, like, obviously, it's my beautiful, loving, amazing, incredible wife. She is always my sponsor here on the podcast. I love her. I would not be doing this. I would not have the cojones to go to cons and do a whole bunch of stuff. And, hon, you'll always be my sponsor. You know that. Speaking of cons, I've gone through my list, and I am cutting severely back next year when it comes to cons. I have 14 this year, I think was my final total. I don't think the Mississauga Comic Book Expo is going to be happening this year due to things that are out of my control. So Toronto Game Expo in 2 weeks will be my last one for the year, and I think I'm just going to be doing some major ones next year. So your Toronto Comic Cons, Fan Expo, Niagara, Hamilton, etc. But I think I've only got 8. I think I've only got 8 major conventions. Maybe Toronto Game Expo next year if they invite me back as a guest. But yeah, not that many next year, which is not bad because I do want to do a big build next year, which will give me a lot of time. That is the biggest problem about going to conventions is once you go to a convention, you kind of lose out on that weekend to do cosplay stuff. So next year will be a big build and pull back on a couple conventions, or maybe there'll be some new ones that I want to go to. We'll have to wait and see. All right, folks. I've had you guys wait long enough. We're about 15 minutes in. Let's get into the main event. That is why you're all here. We're going to talk about cosplay and social media. This is an episode that has been on the docket for a while, and I've tried to figure out the best way to do it because I could sit here and talk at length about social media and talk about tons of details and tons of things because this is something I deal with on a regular basis. So I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience of dealing with these things. But if you're in the cosplay community, which is I think a bunch of people who are on my who are watching the show right now, it doesn't really matter that much to them because I would just blab on about marketing. So I thought, let's figure out a way to combine the two. And I kind of went, well, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of cosplay and marketing because that's kind of what this is trying to market yourself. That's really what we're all trying to do here, if you want to. And we are going to talk about that later on, because one of the questions that someone asked was, why do any of that at all? And I have a very easy answer for that. But I think a lot of us, because at the core, cosplay is art, and as an artist, you want the world to see your art. Well, the world is on about 7 social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, X, etc. And that's where you put yourself out to be seen. You can't go out to, you can't go out to a square, you can't go to an art gallery like other artists. This is how you are seen in 2025. So we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. But before we do, we're going to talk about my background. I have been in the marketing world for over a decade. I have a college diploma in marketing, and ever since I graduated, actually I did 2 internships while I was in college. I have been in the marketing world. I have worked for non-for-profits. I have worked for B2B, which is business-to-business sales, and I've also worked for business-to-customer sales, B2C. So I've seen all different fathoms of marketing: people selling directly to a customer, people selling to a business, and people trying to, sell the non-for-profits because, it's a charity. I have worked in social media. I have worked in email. I have worked in digital advertising. I have worked on brand building. I worked in sales. I have worked in almost every facet of marketing you can think of. So I have a ton of ideas on different ways to market. And the thing that kind of combines all of it together is you want to get your name out there. If you want to grow your business, your art, or anything, you need to be active on social. Again, you have about 7 platforms that all have different ways of working, different ways of looking, different post types, different mindsets that you're in when you are visiting them and looking through them. These all matter. This is a second business, kind of. And my wife and I totally agree I pretty much have 2 jobs at this point. I have my 9-to-5 job, and I have my 5-to-9 job, which is this, cosplay, social media, etc. Before we get too deep into this, I want to stress this, because this is going to be a part of many of the topics we talk about. I am a married 37-year-old straight white male. I have not experienced everything you can experience here on social media. Fair? I only know what I have experienced, what I've seen, what I have been a part of when it comes to marketing. If you feel like you have dealt with other situations and other things that have happened to you on social media that I am not talking about, please get yourself your own podcast and go nuts. Talk about everything that's happened to you, because most of that stuff probably shouldn't happen. And I can't sit here and tell the world about everything that could have possibly happened to every single person in the world when it comes to cosplay, marketing, etc. Cool? Cool. All right. Let's jump into the good. What is so good about social media when it comes to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and etc.? The visibility and community, number 1. I would not know half of you, if not 3/4 of you, if it wasn't for social media. Social media lets all of us cosplayers showcase our work across the world and connect with like-minded people. There is a shot, a very, very small shot, that someone across the world can watch me right now. That would not have existed 10, 15 years ago. Because when I started cosplaying, this did not exist. Live streaming on YouTube, live streaming on TikTok, it wasn't a thing. This whole thing is really new. And I don't mean really new like it's the past couple years. I mean, when it comes to recorded history, this whole thing is about a hair deep. Like, it's not that old, really. So it is really cool that I can wake up in the middle of the night. I can come on here if I want to, and I can live stream, or I could go on TikTok and I can live stream. And there is a good chance someone, possibly like-minded, possibly not, may get to connect with me, and they might find me cool. We might talk about cosplay. That doesn't exist without social media. You can do that on Facebook, you can do it on TikTok, you can do it on Instagram, you can do it on YouTube. So being able to show your work and build a community is a pretty damn cool thing about social media. Also, the ability to skill share and inspire others is amazing. Again, I'm going to mention this a lot. Back when I started cosplaying, the tutorials for cosplay and trying to understand how people built things didn't exist. They were very, very shallow videos that maybe showed you very, very rough versions of what people built. It was pretty much your main things, like an Iron Man suit when 3D printing kind of took off when it first did. Building foam cosplays. I remember vividly, because I recreated it, I vividly remember watching a tutorial of someone making a Power Rangers helmet and making it out of cardboard and Bondo. Like Bondo, like not 3D printing and you fill in like the entire thing was Bondo. And I tried remaking it on my apartment balcony, and the helmet weighed a ton. That was the kind of tutorials that were available then. There were some people like your Evil Teds and your Kamui Cosplays who did have some foam stuff now, but now anybody can post a tutorial about how to make a certain thing, and you can have everything you've ever imagined can be a tutorial at this point. You could probably think up any prop you've ever wanted to make in any TikTok, etc., that will show you how to make that thing in detail. That's a pretty dope thing to have when you're someone who's creative. Let alone you now have AI that'll be able to explain it to you if you run into a problem, because it can probably find something that you haven't even seen yet. So that's pretty darn cool. Also showing behind the scenes content so you can help others learn and grow. It's building the community. It's being able to share things and show your experiences, positive and negative. And I think that's something we're going to talk a little bit further down in the bad of showing the negatives, because I think we have built social media into a showing of your best and showing a persona, and nothing ever goes wrong with me. Well, no, that's not human. And I think we're starting to get a little more understanding that there are some people that's their world and they want to show off, sitting on a jet and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, that's not really the truth though. That's an act. You need to be more authentic on social media, and I think that's something that is definitely growing in the world of social media, especially in the cosplay world, because we're talking about things like, stuff going wrong at cosplay contests, and people coming out and saying, people coming out and saying things that maybe didn't happen the way it really did, and explaining the truth of a situation and stuff like that. So sharing your technique, sharing your inspiration, growing the community, like I said, is something that is very, very good. Boomster Joe bringing up a great point. I do regret not documenting all my failures. I feel it would have made good content, and it does make good content. It makes great content. I actually have a video that I'm going to be shooting this weekend about the last Ghost Rider skull I made. This is Ghost Rider Skull 3. The first one is in most of my photos. There is a second one, which is currently over there in the other room in a garbage, because it's after I built the thing out of foam, painted it, put all the lights on it, put all the flames on it. I hated it, and I ended up throwing it in the garbage. And I want to talk about how that happens sometimes, and how you could get to the 1 yard line and be like, I'm so close to finishing it, and going, it's just not what I want, and it gets thrown out. And that's okay. It happens. Don't happen all the time, because you're going to run through materials real fast, but it's okay that stuff happens. Another thing, the opportunities in networking. Like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't know most of you because of this. If I wasn't on social media so much, if I wasn't doing a podcast live, I probably wouldn't know a bunch of you. That helps so much. And you get opportunities by putting yourself out there online. There are partnerships with organizations, there's sponsorships, there's collaborations with other cosplayers, and even job opportunities if you get super lucky and you are of that very 1%. I highly recommend not shooting for that. That is something that will just happen with your content and your hard work. Don't go aiming for that. Especially sponsorships. I've had companies reach out to me. Like, I'm not a big cosplayer, to say the least. And I've had companies reach out to me asking about, doing sponsorships. Like, we'll send you some product and test out the product. And if you like it, shoot a social media post or a video on YouTube telling how much you like the product. That stuff can happen if you put yourself out there enough with the right amount of content. And that's something we're going to talk about a lot later, is what is the right content to be putting out there and what is probably not going to do as much as you might think it will. But those things are available. And again, the only way to get those things is to post online. Companies are not going to know who you were or who you are if you don't if you don't say who you are and show your work. It bugs me how much it reminds me of math class when I was a kid, when the teacher would say, show your work. That's what we're kind of doing now, is we're showing our work. We're showing the progress of the cosplay being built and not showing just the finished product, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. And last but not least, and this is the one that is very good, but with some things in this world, if you take this too much, it is a negative, and that is the validation factor of social media. You can get positive feedback. You can get support for your cosplay and needing help with things, and the encouragement that can boost your self-confidence and motivation. Like I said, this is a pill that you can take, and you can take it and it will help you a lot. But if you take one too many, this is a slippery slope. So make sure to be watching out when you do this. The positive feedback you get online of people saying, man, I love your stuff. Like, that's really cool. And you did a great job on that. That's a great thing to hear, but do not get high on your own supply when it comes to this, because when you start taking that stuff in and you start taking that stuff to heart, of people online telling you you're great and what you did was so cool and that cosplay is amazing, when you get that negative feedback from people, you are going to take it as hard as anything else. So that's a very fine line. There's a lot of people who tell me I do great stuff on social media, and I appreciate it. But believe me, I do not take it to heart, because I know that I'm going to start taking that negative feedback the exact same way, and it's going to start hurting a lot more. Can't do that. You have to play it down the middle. You can take it, like, you can take your positive, but do not take it to, don't let your head get too big with stuff like that. The support for sure. Like, I've had friends reach out asking, I just don't like the way this looks. Maybe we should change. Maybe I should do this. Maybe should I do this? Should I try this technique instead? That is one of the best parts about social media. I love having other cosplayers reach out to me and want to just talk shop. Like, even going to cons. Like, that is one of the coolest parts about having a table at a con, is having people come up to you and talk shop. Talk about cosplay. Like, hey, this is a really cool thing I want to build. Do you have any idea of how to build this? Yeah, I got a really cool idea. And even having the, even having the heart to say no, but I do know someone who can do that. I had that recently where someone asked me about wig making and styling a wig and putting things in, like having horns in your wig. Like, how do you support it? And I was like, man, I barely use wigs because none of my cosplays really need it. However, I got someone who can, and I threw it over to someone else, and they were able to help them out. That validation factor and encouragement and support of the community, that's really freaking cool. And it gives you sometimes that little bit of motivation that you need to get yourself over the hump. And Boomster Joe said it's easy to confuse attention with growth. Yes, very easy to confuse it with growth. And Pretty Nerdy Crystal, our cosplay hangouts. Yes, 100%. Pretty Nerdy Crystal and myself and Freakish Workshop, we get together, a couple times a month, and we just, we throw on Instagram, and we all just kind of, have a camera with each other, and we'll just be building and chatting and doing stuff like that. It's really cool. It's really fun to just kind of shoot the shit and while you're cosplaying. So that is the good of cosplay. Let's get into the negative of cosplay, because with the yin and the yang of the world, with the positive comes the negative. Number one, the pressure to perform. Feeling like you always need new content. You need bigger builds. You need the perfect photo to stay relevant. Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, this is something that should not bother you, because of the way that social media now works. So, back in the day, when social media first started, social media worked very much like email marketing. And what that means is, if I was a company and I wanted to send emails out, I would get a bunch of people who liked my company. I would get their emails, and I would make an email list. I would create my email, and I would send that email to my email list. And I would send it to, let's say, 100 people. A certain percentage would look at the email. A smaller percentage would actually do something with the email, click on a call to action or something like that. That's how social media used to work. So you would get as many followers as you can, and then you would post a piece of content, and a certain amount would see it, and a certain amount would like it, a certain amount would comment. That's not how the algorithms work anymore. With the introduction of TikTok, we now live in a world where it's not about how many followers you have. It's about how good the topic is. It is now known as the interest graph, not the social graph, which means if you are posting good content and it is something that people want to engage with, you will be seen more, because the social media platforms want you to stay on the platform. Remember when TikTok first started, and there was kind of this mini epidemic of people spending more time on TikTok than any other social media? That was because they were the first ones to really introduce this interest graph. They were sending you content you were interacting with. All the other platforms have now brought this model in. So if you want you want to see this in action after the show, go on to Instagram, whatever, go to the search bar and type in puppies and go through the feed of stuff that they're going to send you, whether it's reels, photos, or whatever. Like 10 of them, comment on 10 of them, and save 10 of them. Then search kittens. Like 10 of them, comment on 10 of them, save 10 of them. I can bet you tomorrow when you wake up in the morning and you go through your feed, you're going to have more content about kittens and puppies. Because the algorithm noticed you interacted more with it, you're going to get more of it. So, when it comes to feeling like you always need to put out new content, it would be nice because you want to be seen more, but it's not a necessity. If you started a new Instagram account tonight, if you started a new TikTok account tonight, and you put out a new piece of content that was good, you can get more views and more likes than anything I can put out now. And I have 5,000 followers, 50 some odd 5,700 on Instagram. I have 5,000 on TikTok or on Facebook. I got a couple hundred on TikTok. I got a couple hundred here. You'll get more than me. That's how it works. Getting the feeling of having to out-compete everybody, that is just, trying to do bigger builds and have the perfect photo. That is just an ego. And all that ego is just you feeling like you can't, that you're not good enough. That is all that is. Feeling like you're comparing yourself to other people, which we'll get into more later, is just your ego not being able, someone put that in your head that you didn't deserve the love and the credit that you're getting, and you just feel like you're not worth it. That is not you. That is someone else in your life. Algorithm anxiety. This kind of flows into what we just talked about, how changing reach and engagement rules can hurt creators and make posting feel like a grind. This is kind of something we're going to talk especially more when we get down to the questions. The algorithm is changing in little ways here and there. This is a second job, and this is a lot of work. When I say I don't watch TV shows, it's not just because I don't want to watch TV shows. It's usually because I'm busy doing stuff like researching and listening to podcasts and, TED Talks and stuff like that about marketing and about social media, because the world is changing. The algorithms and stuff are always changing, especially when it comes to the different platforms. And this is something I think a lot of people don't realize. And I didn't really realize it until I really got into the social media world and, the way certain things in the certain platforms work. So I use this analogy at a couple of the businesses I've worked for. You can look at every platform, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube, etc., as different TV stations. So you can say your Facebook is like your local news. You can say TikTok is like, or X is like Fox News or just Fox. You can say TikTok is sort of, MTV. You can say Instagram is like, TLC, I guess, Art Channel or something. All of these channels, you have a different mindset when you're looking at them. You're looking for different things when you're looking through each different channel. For example, I wouldn't post my cosplay stuff on LinkedIn because I know LinkedIn is more of a business platform. Facebook is, like I said, like a local news. It is more of an older demographic. It is older. It is more community centric. If you're wanting to be the biggest cosplayer in your city, I would post more on Facebook because it has that community feel to it. When it's something like a TikTok is getting kind of similar to X in the fact that it is becoming a very news and a very topical type social media, because it is becoming, it's pretty close, if not the biggest one in the world right now. I personally know that if I post a video on Instagram and I post a video on TikTok, there is a very good chance that I'm going to be getting a lot more negative comments and negative comments on the TikTok video than I will on Instagram, because I know Instagram has more of a community feel and has more. It started as an artistic social media, so it still has that artistic community feel to it. That is very much about beauty and art and etc. While TikTok is more of a topical and more of a quick, fast pace, more that type of social media. So you really do need to know what each one of these platforms is, because if you just shotgun the same content and the same copy and the same hashtags on every platform, some are going to work and some aren't, because you're not you're not building your content for the platform. You're just going, well, I only got 5 minutes, go. And I get that everyone's busy in the world, but if you want to grow, you need to know these things. You need to understand that a reel on Instagram might not work on TikTok. It might not work on YouTube Shorts. There's different things. You got to know the difference between a post and a reel and a short and a story and, all these other things. It is a second type of job. That's why a lot of big creators have social media teams, because they want to just build. They don't have the time or the understanding of the marketing side of it, of the social media side. So that's where you can really get hung up on, how do I keep track of all this? Thankfully, I have a background in it, and it's kind of my job to stay up to date on these things. So if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If you want to keep up on, if you want a good place to start, and I will always push this book because it is something that helped me a lot when I was really struggling and trying to understand all this. There is an individual named Gary Vaynerchuk. He is the CEO of a marketing firm called VaynerX. These guys deal with the biggest brands in the world. They deal with Pepsi, they deal with Gillette, and a whole bunch of other big brands. Gary put out a book earlier this year, late last year, called Day Trading Attention. It is his 6th book. This book it is like a textbook of how to grow on social media. It is such a good book. I've listened to it about 50 times. I've read it. I've got the physical copy too. Go check it out. Day Trading Attention by Gary Vaynerchuk. It will be a great way to get your feet wet, to understand what is going on. And by the way, the book is about a year old, which means there are some things that have changed since he wrote the book. But I always tell people, if you don't really get it, this is a book that'll help you understand it, because he gives you examples. He gives you great understanding of how all this works and what works on what things. MBS 1984 in chat says, always interesting having someone with basically no following try to pretend like he knows anything. If you did, you'd have actual viewers here. Ooh, that's a shot. Ooh. Yeah, you know what? He makes a good point. I would. But here's the thing. I don't do as much on here as I should. I don't. You know what? He makes a very, very valid point. I have not pushed this much. I haven't, because I do this in a 9-to-5 job. So if I had the time and I had the dedication to be doing this, like, I've really only been doing this cosplay and podcasting for 5 years. And I haven't really even put that much effort in the first 3.5 to 4 years. So he's got a point, because I haven't really put as much effort as I should, because I should be a lot bigger, but I have things outside of this world that I want to spend my time on. I remember very much when I first started really getting into the cosplay world. Good friend in the area, Reed Props Plus. I was so envious of him, because during the pandemic, when this really started, he was just pumping out content. He was posting stories he was posting 5-6 stories a day. He was showing his updates and And I was like, I can't compete with him. I can't do it. I've got all these things I'm doing. This isn't my thing. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm 34 and I'm married and I have a house and I have all these things. He's a lot younger than me. He's got a lot more time on his hands. Not saying he doesn't work and all that stuff, but there's a lot difference between the two of us. And I think that's something that really made me understand the world of I don't know what everyone's story is. So I can't sit here and be like, I wish I was him. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know how he's able to do all that, but he's also been doing it for a lot more time than I have. And he'd been working for years on this stuff, and he had polished his stuff that good. So, hey, good for him, and good. You know what, MBS, I got nothing against you. He said, that's fair, Boomster, but there's a difference between this is what I'm trying. 100%. But this is how it's done. Well, and this is the point I'm trying to make, MBS, is that I do this 9 to 5 for companies. I've been in the marketing world for a decade. I'm doing this with myself. All this stuff that I'm talking about, I have done with corporations and businesses. Again, you probably missed at the beginning, but I've done this with non-for-profits. I've done this with for-profits. I've done this with B2B sales. All this stuff has worked. I just haven't implemented it as hard as I possibly could in this, because I've been doing it 9 to 5. I don't want to simply market 100 hours a day, because it just gets frustrating after a while when it's literally the same thing. It's like saying, like some people love playing golf. That's great. I highly doubt you want to play golf from 8 in the morning till 8 p.m. 5-6 days a week. That would get kind of boring after a while. So, where do we go? Oh, funny enough, the next one, trolls and gatekeeping. Yeah, that's funny. Dealing with negativity, harassment, or people who police what counts as real cosplay. This is something that it happens in every place. It doesn't just happen in the cosplay world. It happens in every fandom. It happens in everywhere in the world. There are always going to be people, and the baseball game over the weekend is a great example of it. As soon as the game ended, you had everybody talking about what they would have done differently and how this should have happened and this should have happened. It's the same thing in the cosplay world. You will always run into people who will tell you what isn't cosplay and what is cosplay. I've had people tell me straight to my face, I don't think those bikini cosplayers are really cosplayers. Really? You don't think those bikini cosplayers are real cosplayers? I think anybody that wears a cosplay is a cosplayer. That's what cosplay is. And whether it's building a giant mech or, wearing a bikini, that's cosplay to me. It just depends on what you're wearing. You're just changing the clothing. Anybody that puts out their art or puts out anything in this world will deal with negativity. Like, it's just the way it comes. It's just the way it is. People that are willing to, post anything negative or, take the time to put a whole bunch of, this isn't what it should be, you shouldn't be doing this, etc. Man, they got to be dealing with something pretty negative if that's what you want to do with your time. In a world where you can do anything in the world, you can watch any movie, you can listen to any music, you can watch any game you want, you can play any video games you want. If you're taking time out of your day to look at someone who's trying to create or trying to influence or trying to help, and you're just sitting there, complaining that they shouldn't be doing that, man, I got so much sympathy for you, because I feel bad, man. Like, I really wish you probably got some stuff going on, and I feel bad. Like, I really would love things to feel better for you, and you could find something better to do with your time than, going on wherever and talking crap about, someone trying to create some art. But hey, it happens. And I don't take it personal. I don't take any negative comments I've received. I'm just like, man, I hope things get better for you. I really do. But sometimes they don't. And sometimes they stuff happens, and it just sucks to see. So, lastly, in the bad, burnout and mental health. Burnout and mental health. This is something I have sadly seen a couple cosplayers go down a really bad rabbit hole when it comes to burnout and mental health. The balancing of, the crafting, the conventions, creating content, being online and all that. There are some that I can just see it in their content that it's tough to see, because you're doing your best to help them out. And I've reached out to a couple cosplayers who I've seen, just the stuff that they put out, you could just feel as negative, like talking a whole bunch of crap about other people, other cosplayers, kind of going back to what we talked about gatekeeping of like, man, this isn't real cosplay, or what they did, I should have won, they shouldn't have. Trying to balance, like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, like doing 14 conventions in a year, and then trying to also balance building a cosplay on the weekends and doing content, in my nights and stuff like that. It's a lot. And like I said at the beginning of the show, this is a second job, basically. It really is a second job. So trying to balance all that, it can definitely lead to burnout. And my best advice for that burnout is do not push yourself too hard, because, man, it's not worth it. Like, I love cosplay. I love doing this podcast. I love creating content. But I know if my mental health starts to slip, I'm shutting it off like that. There won't be a post that I put out of like, hey, I'm taking some time off, or I'm just done. There's no need to, I'll just shut it off, because my mental health is way more important than cosplay. This is supposed to be fun. Like, we're playing dress up, folks. Like, that's what we're doing. So if you get to the point of being burnt out and your mental health is shifting and falling down a rabbit hole, man, just pull the plug. You can come back. It's not forever. It is definitely not forever. You just need to pull the plug for a bit and come back to it when you're feeling better. That makes things a lot better. Let's get into the ugly. This is the part that sucks the most. The exploitation and the safety concerns is a big problem. The stolen content, the fake accounts, harassment, the risks of, overexposure and stuff like that. It's something that kind of comes with social media, and it's a dangerous thing. It really is. I've seen people lose their accounts because people will go on to, they'll get people jumping on their accounts and putting a whole bunch of content out that wasn't them, and then stuff gets messy, and then the account gets locked, and then they can't get into it. Stolen content. I've seen a lot of fake accounts for cosplayers. It's, it happens. It really sucks when that stuff happens. Going back to the trolls, the gatekeeping, the harassment, I've definitely heard some female cosplayers and LGBTQ cosplayers talking about understanding what they have to deal with. It's rough. Like, it really is. That is something that I can't talk about myself, because I've not had to deal with anything that bad, or, the harassment that some of these cosplayers have to deal with. There's nothing I can really do about that. I wish there was. I wish the community was a lot better. It's something that, I don't know. That is something I really can't really comment on, because I've never had to deal with any of that extreme side of the cosplay world. I would say if it does get to the point where there is harassment, looking into talking to authorities, looking into, the understanding, looking into blocking accounts the best you can is my best advice. It's just, do your best to keep yourself safe when you're online. Definitely don't post a lot about your personal life. That is something that you will see a lot about here. I don't talk about my wife. I don't talk about my address. I make sure not to show the outside of my house and stuff like that, because not that I'm saying I'm not that size, but hey, you never know. Tomorrow, a post could blow up and there could be, 10,000 people added to my social media, and then who knows what happens after that. So I've talked to my wife about it. I've talked to my family about it, and I've been like, hey, I'm not going to mention you guys because I don't know what's out there. So, there are definitely some people I've seen in not in the cosplay world, but in other forms of social media, especially on TikTok when it blew up in 2020. The big thing was documenting their lives, documenting their families and such. And then if something were to happen and say something happened on a video that people didn't agree with, well, then they've got the authorities coming to their house and having to deal with that. And that's stuff I do not want to deal with. So definitely do your best to take as much safety precautions when you are posting online. Make sure to triple check what you are posting online and what you're not posting online, because while this is a great platform to share your life and to share your creativity and all that, remember that there is a line that you probably shouldn't cross when it comes to certain things. So that is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's get into the questions that you asked me about social media and cosplay. So this is the one that I have that kind of caught my attention. Why try was one of the questions that was asked to me in a joking way. And I completely agree. And you know what? They said it in a joking way, and they sent me a message specifically saying, you don't have to talk about this on the show. It was just a joke. And I said, no, we actually do want to talk about this, because that is a valid question. Why try to post on social? You don't have to. You really don't have to. You don't have to be on social media if you don't want to. If you are perfectly fine building your cosplays, going to conventions, and that's it, mazel tov. Enjoy. 100%. I have no problem with that. If you want to grow as a cosplayer and you want to, connect with the community and you want to meet other cosplayers, well, most people, not just cosplayers, are on social media. So that's where it kind of falls into what do you want to do? If you're just good with making stuff, and that's great, but if you want to do more, you might want to post a bit on social media, or at least join groups on either Facebook, or meet people or talk to people on Instagram and talk about your cosplay, and you might help grow you a bit more without having to do a whole ton of social media. I had someone reach out about this, and I asked them to message me with more detail, because this is kind of a vague question because I don't really know the context, but they didn't get back to me yet. They asked me, what should I do if a bigger creator copies my content without giving any credit? Now, this is something that I've actually dealt with recently. So what happens if what should I do if a bigger creator copies my content? Now, that's where the vague comes into play. Did they simply take an idea of yours and, do something with it? That is kind of a gray area. Everybody has posted everything on social media between when it started till now. So there isn't really a ton of new ideas. So if it was just let's say you did a TikTok video you started a TikTok trend of you danced in front of a camera to a certain song, and a whole bunch of people took it and they didn't give you credit. You can't really do anything about that. That's just the way the internet works. Like you've probably taken content or been inspired by other content that has created content for you, and you haven't you can't give that type of credit. Now, if it's something like they specifically took your photo, or they took a video of yours and they put it onto their channel, well, that's something very different. I've actually had that happen one time, where I took a photo off of Google. I just Googled blah, 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 blah cosplay, because I don't have any photos of my own that fit what I was looking for a green screen video, which was I had a photo and then I had a little animated thing in front of it. And after a few days of it being posted, the person who was in the cosplay commented on the video and said, "Oh my God, that's me." And I felt, cool, that's you. I will tag you in that. If that happens and you see someone used your photo on your content, you can get angry. You can do whatever you want. I would not. I would simply just comment on the video or whatever they did where they stole it, and I would say, hey, thank you very much for using my content. Don't ask for the tag. Don't anything like that, because in that case, you're showing kindness. And the showing of kindness and not getting angry puts you in a really good light when it comes to other people. Because if you sit there and you just, man, you should have stolen my content, this is stupid, da, 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 it really paints you with a really bad brush, and it might not look good for other people who might see that post. So if someone does steal your content and you're not happy with them, DM them, comment on their post, and just say something nice. Just, hey, thank you for using my content. I greatly appreciate it. I know there are people have used my videos, like literally copy, paste. I've seen them on TikTok. I've seen them on Instagram. I've seen it on Facebook. And I just go, hey, it was good enough that someone else used it. That's pretty cool. That's just the way I feel, though. I completely understand if you don't feel that way, but that's the way I do. This is kind of the overarching question that I've received the most. And Boomster Joe said, wow, creators can do that. Yeah, they can. They can. And it happens. This is the overarching question I think a lot of people have asked. How do I gain more followers? And how do I grow quicker? And I hate the word quickly. I've had to deal with this in business a lot, where businesses will come up to me, or whatever business I'm in, and they'll say, how do we grow our social media quickly? And it's very similar to the term, how do I go viral? You don't. You can't just go viral. Like, there's no viral video. It's a video that that a whole bunch of people enjoyed and it became viral. There's a big difference between the two. It's a sad question, in my opinion, because if you grow quickly, if, say, for example, let's use Pretty Nerdy Crystal as a example here. If Crystal was to put out a video or put out a post and it blew up instantly, 1 million views, thousands of likes, thousands of comments, oh my god, it's the greatest thing that's ever existed, greatest thing since sliced bread, etc. That's great, but is that going to last? Probably not. Probably not. It's probably going to be great for the 10-15 minutes, and then you're never going to get that type of engagement again. Maybe you will. Probably not, though. So when you say, how do I gain more followers and how do I do it quickly, you're already losing, because you're already setting yourself up for a lot of frustration, because the chances of being able to do that quickly is very unlikely. Now, when it comes to how do I gain more followers, well, the followers aren't things you should really care about. The thing you should care about is how to get more people to see your content. Because as we talked about at the beginning, the algorithm is about interest. It is about getting your work out there to be seen by the most people and doing things that people want to see. So when you say, how do I get more followers, doesn't really matter. And more importantly, why would someone want to follow you? And I think that's the question you should be asking. Because I'll tell you right now, based off my stuff, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know I post at least 3 times a day. What does the best? What post do you think does the best on my social? Because I'll tell you right now, I can take 1,000 photos and videos in that, and I won't get that much traction. I could get 100,000 photos in the Portal costume, and it won't get that much. The stuff that gets the most views and the most interactions are the green screen reels and memes and the motivational content. Why do you think those 2 pieces of content get more engagement and more views than anything else? Because they're not about me. They're about you. That content is nothing to do with me. It is about building the community. It's building community and getting you guys to laugh at things that I know you're thinking about. Now, am I doing it just to get likes and stuff? No. I'm doing it because as I'm creating content, I'm going, these guys will find this funny. And that's why I make those things. I make the motivational content because I never had that when I first started cosplaying. I never had a social media platform or a content creator that would post about, oh, I really should not be paying attention to likes. I should be paying attention to more how much I'm doing, not how much everyone else is doing. I should be supporting other cosplayers. I never had that. So I want to be that person. I want to post, hey, stop caring about my content. Stop caring about the likes. Stop caring about what everyone else is doing. Focus on your own shit, because in the end, that's what matters. And the reels and the memes are funny. That's all they are. That's all they are. Boomster Joe said, yeah, I've noticed people don't really pay attention to what I do, but just what I do relative to them, because that's what they're looking for. The market will always tell you what is working. And you sitting there talking about how great you are, it doesn't really work half the time. It can work for Beyonce. It can work for Taylor Swift because they're at that level. But if you're not that person, it's not going to work for you. So, you have to understand what your audience is looking for. And if it's a tutorial, great. If it's motivation, great. If it's just coming in here to laugh, great. You need to understand what your audience is looking for. Boomster Joe, I know you posted a whole bunch about the Iron Man suit, and you specifically mentioned earlier on, I wish I could have done more videos and stuff about the failures and the stuff building up to it. Boom. Why would you post that? Because if you post that, is that showing you in a great light? No. It's showing you're human, and it's showing that, hey, even people who make amazing looking Iron Man suits, you have problems too, and you have failures. So when a new cosplayer comes along and he sees your content and he's like, man, I really want to make an Iron Man suit, but everything's going wrong. He looks at your stuff and he goes, man, he made problems. He had problems too. He failed a bunch. Happens. Shows you're human. It shows you're building a community. And that's kind of what this cosplay thing is. Remember? Cosplay community. If you do want to grow your stuff on social, the biggest thing you got to remember today is the interest graph, that people are going to care. People are going to be looking. The stuff that is going to do well is probably not about you. And this is going to take a lot of patience and a long-term investment. Like really, if you want to get big, and I've told this to companies, this is my North Star. And if anyone else wants to grow, it is going to take a lot of time and it's going to take patience. You may get a viral video. You never know. Those things exist, and they've happened to other people where, a certain way of doing things, a new social media platform comes out and you just skyrocket because you know how to work that. It might, but usually it's long-term patience and a lot of work. And Pretty Nerdy Crystal says, I have neither of those things. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine that you don't have that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to understand that there are going to be people who do have the time and the patience and the work ethic to get to that level. And if they get bigger than you, that you can't be upset with that. I'm saying this specifically to Crystal, and she did put in chat, but we have talked about this in the past where, certain cosplayers, I've seen them get upset that, people aren't following me. People aren't liking my stuff. And it's like, well, you're posting once a month. Like, me posting once a day, no one's going to see it. I post 3 times a day because I'm also testing things to see what works and what doesn't, because there's no point in me just posting a photo of myself every day if no one gives a crap. So maybe I need to change this. Maybe I need to add a hashtag. Maybe I have to do certain things. So Boomster Joe said, took my brother over a decade to build his following. He also says it's a long-term thing. It is. It is a long-term thing. And people have responsibilities. People have things outside of this world that, that they have to take care of. Pretty Neri Crystal says, I wish I had the motivation to do it more. Me always so tired. And that's, you have a life. You have a life. It goes back, I mentioned this on a previous episode. When I first started going to Comic-Cons and I started really getting into cosplay, I had 5 other people with me who we all would go to cons, including my wife. And we would go to Fan Expo every single year. And they would want to do group cosplays. And after the first year, I realized real quickly that they have lives. They were, trying to start a family. They were, had work. They had hobbies. They had all these things. And it was me that was cosplay. I want to make sure I have the best cosplay. I want to put all my time and effort into it because that's the way I want to do it. And it dawned on me, oh, there are people who have other things in this world that aren't cosplay. And that's okay. But you can't sit there and be like, well, I didn't. Perfect example. You cannot sit here and say, man, I really suck at push-ups. And I wish I had time to do push-ups. You just sometimes need to do push-ups to get better at push-ups. Like, that's all it is. That's all it is. If you want to get better at something, you need to put the work into it. And if you don't, that's fine. But you can't sit there and say, man, I really suck at push-ups. It's like, well, yeah, you haven't done any. Maybe if you did a few, you might get better at it. And that's all that cosplay is too. I'm terrible with sewing, but I know if I go in the other room and I sit there for an hour a night and I work on my sewing, I'll probably get better at sewing. But if you don't want to do that, don't do it. It's okay. But then don't sit there in 6 months and be like, man, sewing sucks. No, you just haven't worked on sewing. So you don't have to grow your social media if you don't want to. You don't have to post on social media if you don't want to. It's completely up to you. It really is. But if you want to, and you want to grow, and you want to be in the public eye, and you want to, I don't know, whatever you want your goal to be, money, fame, whatever, you got to put in the work. Plain and simple. This is a second job. This is, like I said, my 5 to 9 job, if not longer. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. This has been a little bit of a longer one. If you guys have any questions about social media or growing on it or whatever, please DM me on Instagram. More than happy to talk about it. I know it's a big thing that a lot of people struggle with because we all kind of have that creative brain, but the social media is more of a creative science type thing, and that's a little weird to think about for some people. So any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Next week on the podcast, what are we talking about? We're actually going to do a really fun episode. We're going to talk about some of the best comic to small screen adaptations. There are a ton over the past few decades of amazing comic books that have now joined the small screen, from the Arrowverse to Smallville and a whole lot more. We're going to talk about some of the best. I have not seen all of them, and there are some in there that are a little more niche that you probably have forgot were comic books that have turned into TV shows. So we're going to talk all about that next week. If you were still here, if you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, it means a lot that you are spending your Monday nights here with me. Hope you all have a great night. I love you all, and I'll see you next week or on the other social media platforms. Take care, folks. See you soon. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.